Is DBD getting a little stale for you? Are you looking for some new, fun, sexy, cheeky builds to spice up your Survivor gameplay? Well, you've come to the right place. I spent the day locked up in my room playing a bunch of different games with a bunch of different builds, and I've got at least like 6 different builds that are really fun right now, so I'm going to share them with you guys. The first build, guys, a little bit of a meme build, but it's hilarious. It's literally called the Scream Harrington. Yes, that's right, not Steve Harrington. It's the Scream Harrington. And yes, you can use this build on any Survivor, but it's hilarious on Steve because he has like the most annoying little scream you've ever heard. And it's just really hilarious to see this perk go off on Steve. So basically what we're doing is we're using Scene Partner. Scene Partner activates when you're in the killer's terror radius. Whenever you look at the killer, you literally scream. And then you'll see the killer's aura for 5 seconds. After that time, there's a chance you'll scream again, and if you do, you'll see the killer's aura for an additional 2 seconds. So potentially you could keep chaining screams. But the whole point we have Scene Partner is because we want to actually just give ourselves away because we want the killer to chase us. So we're basically using this perk to essentially be bait and be this huge decoy. So whenever we see the killer, we're just going to scream. And ideally the killer's going to go for us. But if the killer goes for us, the killer's going to actually have a really rough time because of the next 3 perks we're bringing. We have Overcome. Whenever we take our hit, we get that burst of speed from running away for 2 extra seconds, so this lets us get massive amounts of distance away from the killer. But not only that, we're combining it with Lucky Break, guys. Whenever we're injured, we won't leave any scratch marks or pools of blood. So if we're on an indoor map or we have some terrain or some cover to hide behind, we have a very good chance, assuming we stop screaming, which by this time we most likely will have, to actually give the killer the slip because they won't be able to track us from our scratch marks or pools of blood. All they'll really have to go off is audio cues, which is where our last perk comes in. Bite the bullet, guys. Whenever we heal other people or start healing ourselves, we make 0 noise. And also, we don't get as penalized for failed skill checks on healing. So we have a med kit with the gel dressing and a self-adherent wrap, which gets us 2 free self-heals. So basically, this is good for like 2 just epic combos with Scene Partner, just to bait the killer. They'll chase you. When they chase you, they're going to regret it once you have Overcome, Lucky Break, and Bite the Bullet, and you give them the slip. After that, they might not want to chase you anymore, and then, well, you just get free aura reading value from Scene Partner. But this is a funny build, a meme build for sure, but it's so hilarious just baiting killers with Scene Partner. I just want to queue into the game right now, actually. This next build I'm calling the Off-the-Grid Savior, because the whole point of this build is to basically just stay off the grid, save and reset your teammates, and, well, be the savior on your team. So we got Deja Vu, staple perk for prioritizing the objective. Shows you the 3-gen, get a little extra repair speed doing gens. Very good perk on indoor maps or maps where gens are hard to find. Or if you're a new player, Deja Vu is amazing. Helps you break up the 3-gens so you're not stuck in a tough situation in the end game where the last 3 generators are the ones closest together. Because if you do the 3 generators closest together all the time, then the last 3 gens will be very far spaced apart and harder for the killer to defend. So we got Deja Vu so we can mind our business, work on the objective. We got We'll Make It, so whenever we rescue a teammate, we'll get 100% extra healing for 90 seconds. So we can heal our teammates in 8 seconds instead of 16, and it lasts for a minute and a half, so we can probably get more heals out of this if need be. And the last perk we're running is very important, Distortion. We'll start the trial with 3 tokens. Every time our aura would be revealed to the killer, we'll lose a token. For the next 10 seconds, we won't leave any scratch marks. And the point of Distortion here is because this is the off-the-grid savior. Basically, we're running a perk to prioritize the objective, we're running a perk to really reset our teammates faster, and we're running a perk to be off the grid and the least likely character to get tunneled. Now, if we do see the killer on accident at the start of the match out in the open, well, that just sucks. But with Distortion, ideally that won't happen, so that way we'll be able to get value out of our last perk, Deliverance, which after unhooking a survivor successfully, which we will be doing a lot of with We'll Make It, we'll get to jump off the hook whenever we do take our first hook. And because we have Distortion, odds are we'll probably be one of the last players to get hooked towards the end of the game. And Deliverance is a very amazing perk to have in those kinds of end game scenarios. So very good, very fun build. If you don't want to use Deja Vu or Deliverance, you could use Babysitter and combo it with We'll Make It. But this build right here is actually really, really solid, really well-rounded build for sure. Especially for trying to help carry your team. Alright, this next build is basically the Protector, the Saboteur. This build is really fun. I've been messing around a lot with it today, and it's actually really, really good at helping to prevent your teammates from getting hooked, and it's also sabotaging hooks. So basically, we're bringing a toolbox with us. we're not going to use the toolbox for gens. We're just going to save it for sabotages. So Commodious Toolbox has 32 charges, lets us sabotage 50% quicker. We're bringing 2 add-ons, the Protective Gloves, so killers won't be notified when we do sabotage a hook, and the Hacksaw, so we get 30% extra sabotage speed. So basically, we'll have 32 charges, so 6, 12, 18, 24, 32. This is enough for 5 sabotages, which should be enough. I don't think you'll get more sabotages in the game, but if you need more, don't worry, we've got you covered. So the first perk is Background Player. More on this later, but basically when a killer picks up a survivor, you get a huge boost of speed for 5 seconds to run at 150% speed. So this makes it very possible for you to outrun the killer to go sabotage the hook that the killer is taking a survivor to. This just lets you run circles around the killer whenever they pick up a survivor. So it's very good at helping you beat the killer to the hook so you can sabotage the hook. And also just running circles around the killer with one of our other perks in this build. Second perk, Empathy. Absolutely mandatory and necessary. This will show us our injured teammates whenever they're injured. So whenever we see a teammate's aura pop up with Empathy, we know that's the direction we need to head because we need to be in range and close enough to our teammate to be able to actually support him with this build and sabotage the hook and background player, etc., etc. So Empathy, invaluable for finding your injured teammates who really need the help and the protection. Breakout. Hilarious additional perk to use in this slot. You could use We're Gonna Live Forever, but a lot of times if the killer does drop the survivor and go, they'll end up going for you and you won't be able to We're Gonna Live Forever them. But Breakout, when you're within 5 meters of a carried survivor, you get the haste status effect, so we move 7% quicker. Also the background player, which gives us that speed boost as well. So we're moving hella fast, and survivors will wiggle out 25% quicker. So this gives survivors that are getting carried a much quicker chance to try and wiggle out, especially with you running circles around the killer and also sabotaging hooks. Odds are they're going to be able to wiggle out free. So the killer's going to end up having to drop them and then just end up going for you instead, which in that case, maybe one of your other teammates can help get up your buddy. So if you have a teammate with you who wants to bring like We're Gonna Live Forever or some anti-slugging perks, that would really combo well with this build because this is all about sabotaging hooks and like preventing people from getting hooked in the first place. But Breakout, a lot of fun, works like bread and butter with this build. And the last perk is Saboteur, which lets us see the hook auras within a 56-meter range whenever the killer's picking up a survivor. Scourge hooks will be shown yellow, so this is a direct counter to Scourge hooks. So if you see someone running into Scourge hook, you see a yellow hook, you can just go over there, sabotage that, no problem. And the killers will probably rage if you're sabotaging their pain res hooks. So really good, it helps counter the pain res hooks, but also you can use this ability itself to sabotage hook. It does it in 2.3 seconds, so it's not the worst speed ever. The toolbox, I think, is a little faster. But this is also just a backup way to sabotage a hook. And you could even use Saboteur to sabotage a hook that's nearby when your ally goes down. And that way it limits the amount of options killers will have when they pick up the teammate to go for the hook. And then you can use Background Player to just get to the hook the killer's going to and successfully save your teammate. But the real reason we're using this is just for the aura reading on hooks. I personally am not the best at always finding the hooks and knowing where they're at. So this really, really helps me a lot in this build. If you don't need Saboteur, if you know where all the hook spawns are, like the back of your head, then feel free to run something else, like We're Gonna Live Forever, or maybe a chase perk. I don't know, do you, baby boo? All right, this next build is basically the I just want to win build. So if you're looking for a build for solo queue and you're just looking for a build to play for objective and give you the highest possible chance of carrying your team to victory by just blasting out the objectives, this is the build you want to run. Deja Vu, reasons we already explained. 6% repair speed. Also, break up the 3-gen. Prove Thyself to get 10% extra repair speed when we're working on gens together with teammates, which will be pretty easy to do because we're bringing with us Bond, which lets us see all of our teammates' auras within 36 meters. This is good for finding teammates to heal, getting healed, seeing what gens teammates are on so you can join them and hit them with the Prove Thyself. If you're in chase, to prevent yourself from taking the killer to your team wherever they're at, or if you're in chase, same thing, prevent yourself from taking the killer to your teammates, etc., etc. Bond, incredibly good perk, very useful. You could use Kindred here if you really wanted to, but I honestly prefer Bond a little bit just because we're going to be bringing a toolbox with some sabotage setups on it. We'll make it, like we said before, 100% extra healing speed when you unhook. Pretty self-explanatory, helps you reset your teammates really quickly so you're not wasting a lot of time healing, because when you heal in 8 seconds instead of 16 seconds, it's not only saving you 8 seconds of time, but it's saving that player 8 seconds of time. So each heal you do will make it save 16 seconds of game time for y'all to be doing other things, which honestly is pretty significant and it definitely adds up. And then we're bringing a Commodious toolbox or a Masquerade toolbox. some scraps for a few extra charges, and a hacksaw for extra sabotage speed. Lately, what I've been doing when I only bring one toolbox is if the killer like pops the gen or kicks the gen and causes it to regress, if you'll notice on the bar, you have to repair a little bit of that gen first to get it to stop regressing. So if a gen blows up and I don't have time to keep working on the gen, but I want to stop it from regressing, that's when I'm going to use my toolbox. I'm going to use my toolbox just to get a quick burst of speed just to stop the gen from regressing and then go do something else if I need to. Also, I brought the sabotage attachment with this build in case you want to go for some sabotage saves as well, which is possible because you have bond, which kind of serves the same purpose as empathy, but just on a much smaller radius. You could also bring a med kit to heal yourself if you wanted to as well. But I lately have been really enjoying playing around with toolboxes. All right, guys, this next build is basically called the hide and harass build. It's all about hiding, giving the killer the slip, but also harassing the hell out of the killer and just having a good time. So basically how this build goes, again, we're using Lucky Break. When you're injured, you don't leave any scratch marks or pools of blood. Also, if you heal other teammates, for every second spent healing, you can get a charge of your Lucky Break back. So we're actually going to be combining Lucky Break with Quick and Quiet. Whenever we do a fast vault, it's completely silent. So we can run into a locker really quickly, completely quietly. We can take a vault really quickly, completely quietly. So there's a lot of options to give the killer the slip with this build, because whenever we take an M1, we will stop leaving pools of blood and scratch marks. Also, we could take a fast vault, give the killer the slip. They won't know where we went because we're not leaving any scratch marks. It really depends a lot on the map. If you're out in the open, this build really is not that good if it's a wide open map with a lot of view. But if it's somewhere indoors, there's a lot of corners and stuff you can play around, or maybe the shack, that's where this build really shines. The next perk, Iron Will. We're not using Overcome with this setup. We're using Iron Will instead. So whenever you're injured, no scratch mark, no blood, no grunts of pain, you're completely quiet, and you can do a fast vault if need be. So there's a lot of options here to mind game the killer, a lot of options here to hide from the killer, a lot of options here to get away from the killer, but also we're using head on, guys. Whenever you're in a locker for 3 seconds, which you can get in pretty quickly with Quick and Quiet, and they won't know you're in the locker because your scratch marks are hidden with Lucky Break and you're making 0 sound with Iron Will. So if need be, you can hop into a locker, stun the killer, or just let the killer pass and stay safe and save the head on in case they are going to actually go for the locker. You can use head on to try and save your teammates if they're playing around corners. This makes this build a lot of fun. Granted, it does make us exhausted afterwards, so then Iron Will won't technically work, but this build is just so much fun. Then we have a med kit with gel dressing and the wrap, just so if we get away from the killer and they're not actually chasing us, we can heal up real quick to try to save some of our Lucky Break charges. Really, really fun build for just hiding, harassing, and just kind of goofing off, having a good time, guys. And then the last build is also good for having a good time. So this one is another build for Made for This, man. The MFT Fun build, Made for This. One of my favorite perks that got nerfed to the dirt, but under the right conditions, you can still use this perk. Basically, this perk used to give you 3% movement speed whenever you're injured. Now you only get 3% movement speed when you're in deep wound, which, I mean, it's good if you play against like Legion or like Deathslinger. Like, honestly, Made for This is really good against those killers because you get to instantly get your perk value. But what this perk does is whenever you finish healing another survivor, you can get endurance for 10 seconds. So if you take an endurance hit that way, you can go to deep wound and get Made for This value. But the rest of our build is honestly where we're basically trying to bring back the good old looping Made for This build. So we've got resilience. Whenever we're injured, we do everything 9% quicker. Healing, sabotaging, unhooking, cleansing, exit gates, you name it. But the real reason we're bringing it is for that vaulting speed whenever we're looping the kill and chase. So when we're injured, we'll be able to vault 9% quicker. Now, how do we activate Made for This? Well, there's actually three ways. One, if you do heal someone and the killer comes within 10 seconds and attacks you for some reason, and when you have the endurance, then you'll get your Made for This that way. But what we're doing is we're going for something more consistent. We're going for off the record. Now, whenever you're unhooked, for 80 seconds, your aura can't be revealed to the killer, you'll make no grunts of pain, and you'll have the endurance status effect. Keyword, endurance status effect. Whenever you take that hit in the endurance state, you go to deep wound so you can get your Made for This active. Now, what we're going to be doing with this build is we're basically just going to be, after we get hooked, we want to be aggressive and annoying and kind of just bait the killer into chasing us a bit. So we have off the record, just so we have that 80 seconds of endurance. But what we're doing is taking this to the next level with Resurgence, which got a buff recently, which whenever you're unhooked, you gain 70% of your healing progress instantly. So the cool thing about this build, guys, is that because you have 70% of your health once you get unhooked, it's not going to take you more than a few seconds for your teammate to heal you up to full health. And technically, as long as you don't do a conspicuous action, like work on a generator or heal somebody else or touch anything else, you'll still have that 80 seconds of endurance for off the record. So you get healed really quickly with Resurgence. You still have your off the record. You can go find chase, or you can get tunneled and get chased by the killer. You take your first hit. You still have that endurance for 80 seconds. Odds are you take the second hit. Then you go into your deep wound, and then you still have your vaulting speed with resilience, and then you have the 3% with made for this. And we're bringing in a medkit with the gauze roll, just because I don't ever really use the gauze rolls, and because you have 70% of your health, you can sometimes get like one resurgence heal out of this, and then one actual heal, and then a little bit left over for the skeptic agent, which we have as an option for us if we want to use this on like our first hook before we get hooked. If we can cut a corner, pop our medkit, use this to soak up the medkit so we get endurance for 5 seconds, take a hit. We could actually get made for this on our first chase as well if we use our bottle time. So made for this on the first chase, second chase, third chase with off the record, possible chance of getting it if we do end up healing someone. This whole build is basically just around getting your made for this active and just having fun. I don't really like using dead hard because it feels very inconsistent trying to get made for this active with dead hard, especially if you miss your dead hard. But off the record, it's 80 seconds of a guarantee. And then with Resurgence, you basically get healed instantly, guys. Also, fun fact, Resurgence works really good with Lucky Break. Also, Plot Twist works really good with Lucky Break. Anyways, if you enjoyed these builds, smash the like button, have an amazing day. Don't forget to smile, comment down below, donate something to charity or your boy, just because. Anyways, I'll see you guys on the next one. I am out. Bye.